You held your breath, like if breathing was the last thing you had left. Your chest ached to breathe, but you couldn't. No, you just couldn't. Something was going on. Something was planned. So you just had to stay quiet before...
Gotcha.
You felt something around your body, then snatch you up in the air. Ah! You squealed. Tokoyami! You laughed quietly as you were in the air, as you saw him chuckle quietly as well, shaking his head by the entrance of the cave.
I told you Dark Shadow would find you. Don't underestimate him, listener.
I know. You pouted quietly as you were sitting down in front of him, while Dark Shadow nuzzled to your cheek, having a soft, cute emotion in his eyes as he went back to hide behind Tokoyami.
Do you wish to try again?
He shut his eyes for a second, sighing. You've been dating for a while now, and sometimes participating with him in Dark Shadow, with fighting him. He cared about you a lot, more than things he could imagine to worry about. Some of your classmates figured that out and told you that he developed a crush on you. You first were denying the fact that out of any boy at UA High, it would be him. You weren't. It wasn't entirely bad thing either. You found him quite adorable. Despite him having a head of a bird, looks don't matter. You were just really happy everyone else accepted him. Overall, his looks and quirk. It didn't stop you from falling in love with him too. He'd have found out that y'all were dating, and convinced Tokoyami that proper dates was combined training and studying. After a little while, he gave in, and that's how everything's happening right now. So after you were a sweaty plump, Tokoyami would attempt to cheer you up by taking you out for ice cream, while you tried to feed Dark Shadow some ice cream scoops whenever it whined. Having sad, teary eyes looking at you.
Control yourself.
He closed his eyes, sighing as Dark Shadow decreased in size as he went away behind him. It's okay, Tokoyami. It's cute. You giggled quietly as he stiffened up a bit, grunting in surprise, having a soft flush around his face, if it was even possible to see. It always made you laugh whenever he got embarrassed because he isn't the type of guy to be embarrassed like that so easily. But when it came to you, he would become as red as his eyes. Sure, let me have a 5-second start. You crossed your arms, pouting a lot more as he sighed.
Oh, alright. You have 35 seconds to go and hide. You know the rules. Don't go too far to where my vision cannot reach, or else I'll have to leave you in there for good.
You nodded, determined, and ran inside the cave. You did know the rules. He reminded you every single time whenever Dark Shadow was being used. All Might was the first to tell you about his quirk, since Mr. Ozawa was always asleep during class. He will lose control of Dark Shadow when it becomes too dark, and it will become strong and become out of control and overpower him. I don't want that to happen, so I better listen carefully. You giggled quietly, covering your mouth up as you tilted your head behind a boulder you were hiding behind, looking for Tokoyami. You knew he wouldn't find you this time, but he wasn't there. Tokoyami? You whispered. Nothing. You stood up carefully, making sure your footing correct so you wouldn't make a sound. Midori and Ida taught you how to have your feet placed on the ground whenever you were trying to be stealthy and make a sneak attack. You weren't sure if this was going to be an attack, but since you haven't heard anything from your watch, it was probably something else. But Tokoyami was just out there. You didn't know where he went, and this became a natural game of hide and seek, then practicing. Tokoyami, please stop playing around, you grumbled as you stealthily made your way to the exit. It was quiet. Too quiet. It was so quiet that you could hear the wind whisper in your ear as it blew the strands of your hair, making it sway in the air. It made you shiver a bit, rubbing your arms as you tried again. Tokoyami, you whispered, biting your lip. Still, nothing. This isn't funny anymore, you idiots! You sighed and stood against the way by the exit of the cave. You sighed again, crossing your arms. Fine, be like that. I'm leaving. As you were about to take another step, something stopped you, like an invisible force took control of you, and it made you stop. You didn't know why or how or when it happened, but it was happening right now. Something was really off. You heard a loud grunt and yelling. It wasn't too far off the cave. Tokoyami? You ran out, looking frantically for your boyfriend.
You failed, listener.
You looked up to see Tokoyami, Mr. Aizawa, and Ida standing on the very top of the cave.
What is the matter with you, listener?
Ida hopped down and gently pat the back of your head.
This was all a test. You were supposed to stay in there no matter what. You could have gotten hurt.
You wailed and squeaked as you tried to explain to him it was all because you were worried of Tokoyami, because you couldn't see him anywhere. It made you scared.
You weren't supposed to get out no matter what.
Mr. Aizawa let his hair down, letting it cover up almost all his face, like usual, and hopped down as well. That force must have been from his quirk. He must have used it against you, and you didn't know what it was, so you thought it was something else.
This was all a plan, listener. But
he sighed quietly, fixing up his scarf.
If this was a real emergency, and not us testing you, you would have failed. So, you aren't gonna get any consequences for that.
He narrowed his eyes, showing his vibrant red pupils.
So don't do it again.
You shook in your shoes as Ida and him left. Later in the day, you heard a knock on your door quietly as you turned to the direction of the door in your cozy apartment. Just a minute! You got up, setting aside the cat on the floor. His name was Macaroni. You loved macaroni. You turned the doorknob and opened the door to see Tokoyami in a warm hoodie with his hands in his pockets.
Hello, listener.
You crossed your arms and pouted at him. Tokoyami? He sighed quietly. He knew he upsetted you. He shut his eyes to exhale his warm breath and took your hand in his cold ones.
I'm sorry for all that, listener. I didn't mean to scare you.
You pouted a little more and gripped his hand, looking away. He chuckled quietly. He knew that you were the stubborn type sometimes, and he found that cute.
I found that movie you were talking about with Sue.
He showed you what he was holding in his other hand in his pocket. It was the newest horror movie you always wanted to see when it came in theaters. You gasped softly, that pout going away from your soft pink lips. Toko! You laughed and hugged him tightly. Tokoyami patted your back as dark shadow appeared and surrounded the both of you as you were cuddling outside for warmth.
Come on, let's go watch it then.
He tilted his head as you nodded, giving him a quick peck on his beak, and ran back inside, leaving him in an absolute awe, his face growing a really deep red along with dark shadow. Man, he spoils you good, but you love your mysterious, quiet boyfriend. He is the best boy you can ever have. This is my outro for now, because it was copyrighted and I didn't know. Pew 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 pew.